Work session. We'll call the work session for Tuesday, March 14th, for the committee of the whole to order at 6 o'clock. We'll start off with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I should state for the record, in the village hall, we have Felicia, Anders Salquist, Josh Heck, Brandon Crane, Todd Lee, Chris Moreno, Bigliotti, and on Zoom is Donnie Kern. We'll start off with public comment for anything that is on the agenda. 2 minutes per person, up to 14 minutes per topic. Is there anything that would like to speak? John, if you state your name and the address.
My name is John Monpettit, 1868 Coney Road. Did I tell this board in the last village board meeting, if Mike Campers becomes village president, I will not sell that land, or my family will not sell that land to the village? Did anybody hear that?
No.
Then where did you get that, Anders? Because I'm not happy right now, and don't put words in my mouth.
Is there some more comment you have, John?
No.
Okay.
I'm waiting for an answer.
It's not a Q&A session.
Oh, really? It's a chicken shit move right there. Because I never said it, and I want it on record that I never said it. Don't put words in my mouth, Anders.
Is there anyone else that has public comment?
I do have one more thing. It's also in the purchase agreement that from the signing of the purchase agreement, it's 60 days, and this board voted on the end of March for that land to close on. Is that correct?
I believe that was in there, but
So I don't understand where your village attorney is getting his information, but it's just wrong when you start putting words like that in people's mouths. If I have something to say, I will say it to that person. I don't talk behind people's backs.
anything else? Anyone online raising their hand? All right. If that's all, then I will, unless anyone else has any public comment, I will close public comment. All right, close public comment. Next up, committee reports, public works, discussion, building inspector update.
Tony, are you online? I know he was gonna be on, I gave him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, so in the month of February, we issued 6 permits total. 2 commercial alterations, 3 residential alteration, and 1 HVAC. For a total of 6. Then I did receive an email from Bob and Brandon on February 21st regarding 336 Aspen Drive. They're having issues with electrical and I believe flooding. And I did reach out to Troy at HHR or HRHH. And he said that he wished the homeowners would call them instead of contacting the board. I said, well, the homeowners were trying to get a hold of Daryl, but he would not return their call.
Yeah, so the interaction was actually just more spur of the moment. I was actually out selling Girl Scout cookies with my youngest daughter. And and I just was doing some campaigning, multitasking, if you will. This kind of came up in conversation. They were actually actively trying to seek out a board member, but we just kind of so happened to run into each other. So just a clarification.
Yeah, so I did talk to Troy and he said he would, obviously right now they can't do anything with the flooding and stuff like that. He said he'd look into it once the snow has melted away and they could do something about it, but he was gonna let the electrician know to go out there and look at it.
Oh, good. Fantastic. I'm glad it still had the desired outcome. Whether or not how they came about that information. For the source of it. That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, Tony. I really appreciate that.
Yes, no problem. Guess, is there any other questions for me?
Tony, I have one, and I kind of asked Bob this.
I think Troy.
Troy.
Did I say Troy?
You said
No,
Tony.
you
Tony.
said Tony, I thought you said
Oh,
Troy.
okay. I just have one more other question. Have you heard of any plans for Aspen in general? I know that there's a combination of 3 builders there in a row that, they didn't quite follow the grade plan, and now there's going to 3 or 4 houses are affected by that. So we're going to need to collaborate between the 3 builders to figure out who the excavator is gonna be and who's gonna do all that. Have you heard any conversations around any of that?
I have not heard anything about that.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that I'll work with Bob, then on that.
So are you guys thinking that you're gonna implement the as-built survey in your ordinance, or just so we don't have any of these issues down the road?
There's gonna be ordinance updates, yeah.
Yeah, is that the one we're voting on?
Mhm.
That's the one we're voting on today,
Well,
or at the next
Next
session?
Yeah.
I believe that,
So I guess it's appropriate to say there's pending changes to that,
yeah,
pending board approval.
yeah, and based on our discussions, Tony, I think you could probably assume which way I'm going to lean.
Well, there's 2 issues, right? There's the grading issue and there's the sodding issue.
Right. I
Correct.
just think part of it is just
Correct.
that's some of the pending changes that.
And I haven't seen anything ordinance change wise.
Right.
For the sodding. I've seen somebody else's, I think it's Minnesota's version of the grading. Right? So
Well, that's what we have to work
yeah,
on.
we'll get that done, I think, Andrews next week.
Yeah.
Yes,
So we'll have to set something up with you then. Tony, between, you, Anders, Todd Lee, and then myself, for that. As. As built grading, but we are going to move on we do have an agenda item for the sod.
Okay. Then I just wanted to let the rest of the board know that you guys did do a walkthrough with me on a capstone house. And I thought, well, you guys got to see what we look at every day. It's not about not meeting code. It's about workmanship. And I think you guys could agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And yeah, so Todd and myself did a ride along, on an inspection, walk along, a walkthrough.
We'll clarify what you just said, because it sounded like you said it's more about the workmanship than the code. The complaints are about workmanship, not about code. Is that what was just stated?
no, I think what he means is that
Yeah.
they're following the code.
Yes,
But-
they're following the code. It's just when you see builders using crooked 2x4s and stuff like that, there's nothing we can do about that. And I
Right.
think Todd and Brandon seen that out on the job.
Yeah, from what I saw when I went out there, there was a few things that were found and they flagged some issues and they said, and we talked to the supervisor on the job and they said that was their job to come back and take care of it. They would have to work with the inspectors to make sure that those things are fixed before everything gets signed off. We did have conversations about some of the ordinances that are in Minnesota, just kind of asking them, they said they're used to those type of ordinances. And if that's the way it was, they would follow whatever the rules were, but they said, this particular builder, was used to having those types of regulations in place. But yeah, all together, it was a really good experience.
Any other questions for Tony at all? Hearing none. Anything else, Tony?
No, that should do it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next up, discussion MSA engineer update. Chuck?
Yes, good evening, board. Hope all is well. I did want to mention for the record, Brandon, your engineer's favorite cookies are the lemonade ones.
Oh, perfect. All right, my daughter said those ones are for the more seasoned folks. They like those lemonades.
Well, I guess the hipper crowd has this.
Yeah.
So to start off, growing wings, we fast tracked that, and we want to present those to the village as soon as possible. I could show you draft plans now if you'd like. Otherwise, we could try to get in front of you at your board meeting next week. Otherwise, we'll our plan is to get it in front of you in April at the workshop. The curb and sidewalk improvements, we continue to work on those. We are looking for alternatives at this point. With it's come to light that some of the monopoles for some of the street lights and things, the traffic lights, there might be a lead time as much as 44 weeks. And so we're trying to figure out how to address that to help ensure that we can get this project done in this construction season. But supply chain issues are rearing their all too often ugly head these days. So stay tuned on that. And I'm referring, that project, I'm referring to the turn lane there on Main Street.
Chuck, for that, if we went, so we go through all the build and everything, would it just be, depending, say you didn't have anything, would it just be like the hanging lights and then you'd still have all the foundations, everything, the bolts put in place that would mount the regular lights, and it would just basically be installing those once they became available?
Yeah, we're exploring options right now to see if there's other alternatives, if we can possibly reuse what is out there. Those arms are stretching the limits of what you can do if we shift those over to accommodate the turn lane, to reuse those poles, whether or not we can actually make that occur. Yeah, there may be options where we bid it, we do our darndest to get it done this year, and then in the interim, maybe it's a four-way stop for a period of time, or something along those lines. So we are exploring options, more information to come on that.
I had one question, about the sidewalk improvements. When we're saying that, is that all Main Street? Are we doing all Main Street sidewalks and curbs?
It's the same scope as last year. When you say all, I don't have those plans in front of me, but a significant portion of it, down in the downtown area. So I want to say yes, but
Like
I
up
can
to
certainly-
Pizza Planet, like say Pizza Planet all the way back to the bridge, we're doing all the curbs and sidewalks, or is that too far?
No, not all the curb and the bridges. And what I can do, Brandon, if you'd like, I can at the board meeting next week, I could show you those plans. directly.
Okay, perfect.
If you want me to do that, I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry, I apologize. I would just want to, I've been asked a few times by some residents. I just want to be sure I'm giving them accurate information.
we're trying to narrow our focus to the areas that need it the most. And as I recall, beyond that, the radiuses of the intersection, the signal intersection, we're not going much further towards the bridge there. But I can double check.
Thank
Is there
you.
a specific concern by a resident or?
Oh, no, I'm just wondering, because, a lot of the town is going to be under road construction and, just wondering where it's gonna start and stop between all that's going on.
Okay. Well,
Do
that's
we,
good.
Chuck, do we have that scope that was submitted before for that we had estimates that we had submitted for bid to get to Brandon on that? Because that did show the scope from where it started and where it stopped on Main Street.
Yeah, I'll present that next week if that's agreeable to everyone.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yep, that works for me.
All right, just writing that down. So,
Has that been let for bids yet?
no, we're still working on the plans. We're still trying to figure out how to address some of those things. And the snow has actually proved to be a challenge too with the amount of snow we've had this year. So,
But okay, because we're making the adjustments because of the churn lane, but I mean, the rest of that scope that was already let for bid, that I thought we were going to be sending that out for bids early this year. So hopefully get better, get contractors a better aim at taking a look at it and giving us a better price possible.
yes, it'll certainly be much earlier than last year, but we're bidding these projects together. So to take advantage of economies of scale, so to speak. So, next month is what we're looking at
Okay,
for the project, Danny.
that's when it'll be let for bid, or that's when we're hoping to get bids by?
You'll approve it and then we'll put it out for bids.
And that's still to be finished yet this year, provided it doesn't come in at almost $1 million like it did last year.
Yep, that's, we'll bid it in separate parts so you can make decisions. There might be some challenges with the turn lane in that, if some of the equipment, the lead time is too far, we might have to kind of reverse course and, like I said, figure out what our options are, maybe make it, again, temporary four-way stop or just delay the improvements or what have you. But we've got some challenges there.
Definitely don't want to delay those improvements, Chuck.
Nope, I'm with you. Regarding the Main Street Bridge, we received bids on the 8th and we're currently evaluating them. London Construction is the apparent low at 1.6. The Zenith Tech was at 1.76. The sewer and water came in a little bit higher than anticipated. And so we're evaluating those and we'll bring a recommendation directly to the board next week.
Okay.
Also, we do have all the documentation now for pay applications 7 and 8 for the wastewater treatment facility. Pay application 7 is 206,000, where pay application 8 is 259. So I don't know if because you don't have it on the agenda this evening,
We do.
do you want me to?
We have it on there.
Oh, do you?
But yeah, but we don't make a motion on it. It's just discussion.
Approval
Oh,
for board is all you can.
So maybe, am I just missing and maybe I'm just blind or maybe I don't have an updated agenda here?
A7 on the list for the agenda.
Oh, I guess I'm looking at an old agenda. I apologize. I will, when we get to that, I can talk further on it then.
Sure.
Let me get back to my. I guess that's all I have for you right now. Do you have any other specific questions for me for items not further on the agenda?
I've got a question on the wastewater treatment stuff. When do we plan on that being up and operational? Again, what are we shooting for?
Oh, I believe it's the end of this, end of the summer.
In the summer? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I can
Well,
follow up. I can,
Ballpark's good enough.
okay.
I can look it up, please. Thank you.
Certainly.
All right. Next up is discussion ordinance amendment for 13-1-23 I4C1 general site standard sodding and seeding.
So that's around the ordinance update that we'll address next week. And I think that's specific to builders forced to put amount of money, $2,500 or something into escrow when they pull a permit, and they'll get it back either when the sod's in, or the village will have to figure out a way to disseminate it so that the homeowner can use the money sod in on their own.
So there's really no update yet. We're still.
No, we'll finish, and I think get those constructed next week. Yeah, at some point next week.
Yeah.
To get that over to our building inspector too, for him to review and get his opinion on it as well.
We'll give them to him as soon as we have something that's concrete.
Sure. Okay.
All
right. Anything else on that?
Okay.
I think we're pretty
No, I
ready to
think
go
we're doing
on.
that.
Next up, we have discussion mill and overlay on 190th Avenue proposal.
So if you look, you have, in the very front, updates and everything from, Bob. So he explains all that. And the updates.
Are we gonna do, and I did ask this question to Bob, but I guess I'll just ask it out loud here. Are we going to do any improvements to LaGrange? Granger?
The Granger.
I don't know that there was necessarily a need per se on that. as of yet.
In front of the bus company there, it's pretty.
Well, I think that'd be just sort of normal. I think in their world, normal road repairs.
Okay, you think so? It's pretty,
I think, I don't
it's
know.
pretty rough. And
Right, and I don't
It's
think it would be a
potholes,
part
yeah.
of the.
Okay.
Well, I think Bob had mentioned last week, and he said something about they had gotten all of the patch gravel or whatever they could get from the county. And so they're waiting too. And I think that was last Friday that he had mentioned that.
Yeah, 190th, and that one needs to be completely redone. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, down in front of the
What
dome.
are we thinking for traffic control here? Cause this is gonna be, is everything just gonna go right? Or what are we doing on 35 in LaGrange here?
Yeah, everything would be going right unless you're going probably to Quick Trip or.
So he
stuff
has
like
it in
that.
here, if you read under streets, you can. He talks about 190th and that it is, will still be used as part of the detour route during the Churchill Road Highway project. He
Yeah,
says it for surface conditions, so he wants to get that milling.
Doesn't have anything in there about like traffic control. or-
Let's see,
I know we talked about before, I mentioned to him about, I think they're looking at doing a three-way stop at the bottom of that intersection. Just because of to try and control some of the speed through that area since it's difficult. And obviously looking at the trees and stuff like that to make sure that's at 190th and LaGrange.
Yeah, and up here, that's 190th down to Churchill. That's gonna be a pretty busy intersection too.
Yeah.
With people
Yeah,
in there,
so,
something to be aware of, I guess.
yep. there's awareness on that.
Todd will be there, he can, direct traffic. Yeah. It's your plan.
Anything else on the mill and overlay? Of 190th? Yeah. Move on, next on is discussion, safety training consulting proposal. Assumes that within Bob's as well.
I think Bob was saying that they're increasing a little bit on their fees, but it's something that's needed for safety training for the guys here working in the village.
Yeah, could be good on site.
Yeah, it says they come out here and do it. It just might, it might be a little more expensive. Because they don't.
I'm sure this.
Anyways, there's nothing, we're not gonna vote on that tonight, are we?
No,
Donnie, he talked to you about that?
He brought it up to me when we had our discussion that they were coming in with something, and he wanted to, they do their annual safety training. And usually they do that in the spring, but yeah, he was looking at this going forward.
Is that line item, is that part of the budget, or is that something over and above that we would have to approve?
I'd have to see where he put it at. That much we didn't talk about yet. We just didn't have the numbers yet at that time.
I think part of it they're thinking possibly would be more expensive for the training itself, but there wouldn't be any travel because it would be done here instead, so it.
Yeah,
Possibly be a wash.
According to what he said, they've been doing it like that for 10 years. But if it's already in the budget, then we just have to approve an overage.
Yeah,
If
if
it's not in the
there
budget,
is.
then we gotta approve the whole thing, right?
Right, well, I mean, but overall, if you don't have the outlays for travel expenses and stuff like that, it ends up being a wash is what I'm saying. So I think we just have to wait for the official numbers to come through. All right, next up, discussion West Central Biosolids Phase 0.5 receiving paint project.
Yeah, I asked him to put that on the agenda because we all, some of us attended a meeting of the West Central Biosolid. So we, for the people that are there, we pay along with several other ministries to a centralized place that we take all of our biosolids to, and that's called West Central Bio. And then there they treat it and break it down so that they can disperse it. And I believe that that facility is in southern St. Croix County. They are looking that project went into place and was done. Brandon, you might be able to help me out on that, but I believe it was like in the 90s. It was like it's a rather like 20 some years old.
Yep, late 90s, it was implemented because they had to stop spreading biosolids during the winter.
So now it have got to the point where there's some they've been talking amongst all the municipalities at these meetings, and Chris, myself, and Brandon all attended the meeting along with Jim from the Public Works Department, and they are at a point where they are ready to implement, according to all the other municipalities in agreement, these updated facilities to the tune of about, they have, and the grants that they're getting, it's going to be an extra $7 million, which our portion of that $7 million would be roughly about $500,000.
He's cutting it off.
Yeah.
You're cutting in and out, Donnie, so you missed about half the words you were saying.
So our portion of the amount that of the increase in there is $7 million from the total package, and our portion of that 7 million would be about $500,000. They are looking into different areas for revenue generation from the municipalities. And one of them is through making a grant through the Clean Water Act, or a request through the Clean Water Act. At that point, we can get a low interest loan. and we can pay that back at a substantial reduced rate, so they wouldn't have to increase our cost. But that hasn't been approved yet. We just wanted to get that on the agenda to talk about, because this kind of a cost increase is both for businesses and everybody of us to be able to get rid of the our biosolids. Now, we have some other things in place that Brandon could probably speak on a little without me cutting in and out, that's getting worked on, but that's down the road. But this is something that still needs to happen, and I believe the vote is scheduled. They postponed the vote because it wasn't approved when we were there, that it's scheduled for this Thursday at 8 o'clock at the facility.
Yeah, and to that point, one other thing, a benefit of that Clean Water Act of going through that is we actually, we would apply for the loan, however, the facility would take care of all the payments and all of that stuff, so there would be no administrative costs or needs on our end. And while we are working on they are working on the trial for the new bacteria, these improvements are needed for the facility so they can actually keep running. Like, these are just basic things like scales and things of that nature, just so they can keep the business running. In the future, they do have 1.0 and 1.5 expansion plan. We're really gonna have to see how far involved we want to get involved with that, with however the trial is going. So yeah, I think we as a we kind of reached a consensus there and Jim had recommended we go with that clean water fund. And that was kind of what the rest of the municipalities that were involved in it, that was the funding direction they were also thinking on going. So I think this clean water fund is the way forward.
As a scale that we could talk about here, if we took say there's 2,000 hookups in the town of Somerset, and we were at $500,000 expense that we'd be looking at. If you backed out the numbers on that, the cost would be about $250 a connection. So, and that's not paid tomorrow. That's not paid next year. That's a down the road figure that we could talk about how we prepare to fund that. But it's a cost for keeping up and maintaining our ability to get that solid waste into other places for distribution.
Yeah, as part of that grant funding, they need to spend so much of their cash on hand. So they wouldn't be in need of funding. If you look at that graph, it shows they won't actually be in need of funding until March of 24. So that would be when we would need to have the water funds, the clean water funding, everything put in place.
So that being said, if the municipalities vote to do that, we'll just have to start that process of getting the paperwork and everything moving on that, so we can get our funding mechanism in place with the make an application through Clean Waters and the other municipalities and the West Central Biosolid said that along with their engineers said that they feel pretty confident that you can get this low interest loan to help us out with that.
That was a very constructive meeting, and as always, Jim Thanig, our water treatment facilities gentleman, did a wonderful job, and he informed us and he knew all the ins and outs.
All right. Sounds good.
That's all.
Perfect. Perfect. Next up, discussion pay applications number 7 and number 8 for the wastewater treatment fund improvements. Duff, you're back up.
Yep. So, what we're looking for your recommendation, first off is partial pay application number 7. It's working related to the ground storage tank, and the partial pay application is for $206,834 $4. And we reviewed it, and we have all the required documentation and are recommending that you consider recommending approval.
Yeah, I think that's something, I don't know that we'll have to do a recommendation tonight at all, since everyone's here, it'll basically be the discussion, and then next week we just have the vote on yay or nay on it.
Certainly. Any questions regarding pay application 7?
You're basically saying that everything is in order, all the documentation you have, and you're recommending approval of that pay application, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
And then same thing for number 8.
Yep, and number 8 is $259,077.35.
And that's for the generator. Work for the generator.
Primarily, there's some other items in there as well.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Chuck on that one?
No, we need that generator when we have down there's. But that was down there.
All right.
Thanks, Chuck.
Anything? Or Donnie?
No, I just said, thanks, Chuck.
Yep, thank you, Chuck. All right, next up, Planning Commission discussion, Growing Wings preliminary certified map. Survey map, sorry. So do you want to talk on that one again, or?
Well, I wasn't at the plan commission meeting. I assumed it was, I had heard that it was recommended for approval, but maybe somebody who was at the meeting could confirm that.
That is correct. It was recommended for approval. We had one abstention. Everyone else was in favor of it.
So is there gonna be a building in each one of those lots, or
Yeah,
just
so
one big building?
it's 3 buildings, 3 different buildings. So if I recall right, Chuck, it's 3 separate buildings. So they do the first one on lot 2. And then they have 2 years to complete the building on lot 3. Then an additional 3 years to complete the building on lot 4, with one possible extension of up to 6 months. And if they don't meet any of those, then basically they return the unfulfilled lots back to the village, correct?
Yep,
And lot 1 remains village property.
That's correct. Yeah.
Good, that's the slides I want.
so,
Only have a question on that. On the first lot that they're planning to develop in is the one closest up to the road, correct?
correct.
And then if they get that one, then they can go proceed on to the middle one, and then they go on to the final one, which is on the way far back. However, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not gonna be a public road that's going down. So if they choose not to develop, or they can't get the occupants to necessitate the final building, are they gonna have to turn over that portion of the road in order to access that back lot to the village?
No, it would just be absorbed. The concept is it would be absorbed into the land to the east there.
To lot 1. So
Yeah.
lot 1 is retained by the village. So if one, if say lot 4, if they didn't get it built on and didn't meet the timeline, it would be absorbed back into lot 1.
So then that lot would in essence be landlocked, because we really couldn't get to develop anywhere into there, even though we've already extended water and sewer to those 2 buildings, right?
It would be replatted along with, the other land as that develops. It would just be available for.
But in
future
a
sale.
different hookup, correct?
Yeah, well, depending on what comes in there and how that all works. I mean, you'll have utility easements, so if there's a potential that you could serve that back lot, it just all depends on how as the land gets sold to developers, how that happens and how everything's configured. So
I don't mean to bring this up at the last minute. It just come to me, and I'm thinking, okay, so if the back lot, say, doesn't, just listening to Doug, if the back lot they decide they can't get enough occupants and they choose not to develop on that over a term, then that lot is gonna be basically not used for anything unless, well, like you're saying, can be attached to the other lot, but really you've got a land, it's gonna dead end right to that, right?
It'll be absorbed into that larger lot to the east. And the concept would be the utilities would come off of that. So we wouldn't, that most southerly lot, if that doesn't go, wouldn't utilize the services to the north. The water and the sewer would be conveyed to the east.
Donnie, additionally, I don't know if you had noticed, but there is a 66-foot wide proposed easement for ingress and egress that benefits lots 3 and 4, and that easement is going to be granted by a separate document. So in the final agreement with Growing Wings, we can add, I think, a utility easement as well under there, if that's going to be a concern. It's a good catch though, Donnie.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, you're right. Anders, that we could put that in the utilities, and then essentially it would become, instead of private sewer and water extensions, it would be public. So,
Will there be a fire hydrant down that road?
yep,
Who's gonna maintain that fire hydrant?
if it's public, then the city will, and they'll flush it and everything else, but if it's private,
Currently, right now, it's considered private, right? I mean, that road is not it's not gonna be turned over. That's gonna be a private road. They wanted to keep it that way.
yep, so
And so,
that'll be
it's-
their baby to maintain and take care of.
okay.
Any other,
What land is this? We don't even know. Nobody seems to know.
I know, I actually have a question.
Here.
Can I ask you a question? You know how they said like every 2 years or whatever? Is there any way to see if the one works out for like an extended period of time and then build again? There's a lot of concern.
right, I mean, I think that's the concern is that for the pricing that they're getting and what we have on it is that they basically had time frame to get it done, so it's not just sitting there waiting for 10 years for them to.
But
Oh, yeah,
it's
now
like
we're
71 different individuals, right? I mean, that's just a lot.
24 units per building, I think.
46 people.
There's 24 units per building.
So that's just a lot of people with not a lot to offer, and then just to be scared to kind of have it look like the apartment buildings we have now, like, I just don't understand the rush to have to go every 2 years. Like, can we see if one is fully staffed and operated? I just hear a lot of people saying that. I'm just sorry. I'm just asking.
No, and I don't know, and that's something I think that possibly can be looked at within the full-time contract of it and everything
Thank
else,
you.
so.
Thank you.
So that's essentially the concept. Thank you for the question, is give them a sufficient amount of time and then revisit it, right? Is this working or not? So we can, so it just doesn't sit undeveloped in perpetuity. So this allows,
We'll have plans for
We
that.
want to get
at the next
taxes
meeting.
from that.
The Growing Wings plans, we'll have at the next meeting.
CSM will be at the next meeting.
Yeah.
All right,
But yeah, you want to get the tax base in.
Yeah, part of it is getting the tax base.
Where is the road at?
Parent Street is right in front of
We
that.
should give them the.
Yeah, but how do they get to lot?
You're talking about
three?
the easement, right?
It's on the right-hand side, it's on the.
It's right,
on the
give him
backside.
this.
there'll be a separate ingress egress type of situation. They can get to those rear lots.
Give him that one.
So,
would be-
got it. It's on the right-hand side of the lots, east side as they go down, guys. And-
Did you give him the back?
All right, come on, let's start outside bars. So. All right. Any other comments or questions on that?
I'd just like to state that it would be nice to have at least a utility easement to that back parcel. If we're going to be letting that happen, I mean, that would encourage them, one, to get it, if they're hesitant at doing that. then that kind of tells me they weren't gonna go far, but if they're okay with it, I think that they would be able, at least we could get our easement back there to access that if they feel, they fill it and they feel they are going to be able to get that third building back in there, they shouldn't have any problem with an easement.
Yeah, we'll go through that as we get closer to it next week, right, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the concept.
Okay. Anything else, Donnie, that you have on
Nope, that's all I had.
it? Okay. All right,
I do have a question on that. This is Tony, the
okay,
building inspector.
yes,
So
Tony.
can you have more than 2 residences on a private driveway? I don't have the ordinance in front of me, so I can't look it up, but that's the way most municipalities are.
Yes,
It's, you know, that, Tony, I think that that would be contemplated through the development. And it's multiple units. You know, it'd be like saying you can't serve an apartment complex with one driveway. You know, I think.
Yeah, but these are separate lots.
Yeah, these are separate lots, but these are 3 separate buildings, and I think it's probably okay under the village ordinances. But we can look at it and, address it or provide a revision of the code.
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to double check.
we've had multiple discussions whether we do it as a larger lot or multiple lots, but we want to just provide that greater, we didn't want to tie up too much land. If we did it all as one lot on 6 acres and then only the one lot got developed, that poses challenges. So, as we thought, do it as 3 lots and then see how it develops. So essentially it can be turned back, the southerly lots as necessary.
Right, so if they ended up building on 2 or 3 of them or whatever at a later juncture, we could possibly look at joining those lots together. Is that a possibility? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they would need to, but it's a
Right.
possibility.
Right, if it was deemed that we needed to, but if we adjust the ordinance for how we deal with roads and assessing multiple units on a private road,
It would be easier to just do an ordinance amendment at that point versus.
trying to deal with joining lots. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, we will move on. Public safety discussion, February incident reports.
Sunrise Drive's looking busy.
Hundred and 90 calls. John, do you have any comments or anything on that? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah,
Figure sense of there.
How's the Tesla running?
good.
You like it?
Yeah, I do. I didn't think I would at first, to be honest, but it's surprisingly has quite a bit of room for a guy like that.
Good. You look good driving around it.
Oh, thanks.
All right, next up, we'll move to fire rescue February update. I'm assuming. Mr. Hecht, I am assuming.
It appears to be true and accurate. It would reflect the incident and events occurring.
It's just their view.
Tradition's important.
I know Travis. This is our thing. Please,
I just had to ask him, what did you think? He was gonna say he didn't like it.
I never know, one of these times.
well, we do like for honesty from people, so, but if we can have a little bit of. Sidebars lowered. All right.
I, one last question back on there, because I'm.
Sure, why not?
Confused, Doug. They have a road coming in off of the township road. Did you get permission from the township for that road?
Parent Street.
That point, it's called 180th.
Yeah, it's not Parent Street, that's 180th, and that road belongs to the township.
It's a shared road.
No. We tried that, but the village didn't want to do that.
I love when it's a shared road until you have to repave it, and who's not our road anymore. No, we don't own that it just blew up. That's not ours anymore.
So we should just confirm that, Chuck, before next week.
There could be an easement going out onto a town road, and I was just wondering what the driveway separation was from the neighboring driveway. For the easement. In the township, it's 200-foot separation. It looks like you had 300 some feet across the lot though, so I think you're all right.
I think it's all right. I mean, this is, again, it's a shared road and the properties in village proper. But certainly I can get you that information, buddy.
It's not a shared road.
We should have more information on validity on that for next week. All right, moving on, unfinished business. 4A discussion, third-party legal opinion on trustee resident. Mr. Elkins.
Sure. Just as some background, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities finally did provide a third-party opinion on Mike Capper's residency. Just as background for the village board and the public, if they weren't here on December 7th, 2022, there was a general consensus from the board to seek a third-party legal opinion from the League of Municipalities, rather than to have me provide one regarding Mike Capper's residency status in the village. At that time, again, there was a general consensus of the board to seek this, and I was able to seek other third-party opinions as the village attorney. At that meeting, Mike Cappers was sitting up there, and he said that, yes, I agree with that in terms of seeking a third-party opinion. He didn't have a vote on it, but we appreciated that he wanted the input and wanted a third party other than me to provide this thoughts on his residency. At that time, he was seeking to get appointed to the village board. Since that time, he's seeking to run to be on the village board. So this opinion does also take that into account. So the league, without going through the opinion paragraph by paragraph, the league's conclusion is that the village board could legally conclude that Mike Cappers, as the potential trustee, is not a resident elector of the village because the facts do not demonstrate his habitation is fixed in the village as required by Wisconsin statute section 6.10 sub 1. The opinion goes on to conclude that based on the facts, the village board could conclude that the potential trustee's habitation is fixed in Stillwater, Minnesota. Stillwater is where he purchased a home, lives with his children when he has custody of them, and where his children attend school. Any claim that the potential trustee that he has moved to Stillwater as a temporary residence so that his children could try to school there and see how they like it does not serve to establish that his habitation is fixed in the village of Somerset. Perhaps it might serve as evidence that his removal from Wisconsin to Minnesota was not intended as a departure from his prior fixed habitation, but that was in the adjacent town rather than the village. In conclusion, I agree that the village board, as judge of its members' qualifications, would have sufficient legal support to conclude, based on the stated facts, that the potential trustee is not a resident elector of the village as required to be appointed or elected to the village's governing body. And the opinion went on to say that, when someone's no longer a resident or not a resident, they're not qualified to be elected. They also mentioned that a vacancy would automatically also be created when the person is not a resident in the office or in the village where they get elected. So that came from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. And that's the opinion that they've issued.
So, based on that, Anders, what are the next steps? Is Mike still allowed to be on the ballot or?
The ballot's already made.
So,
Ballots are
so I
made.
don't, he's on the ballot, it's made. That doesn't mean he's qualified to be elected. Just because he's on the ballot. So that's, I mean, he's on the ballot and that's the one that's going out.
So you're saying though, if he wins, it would become like a vacancy then?
Yeah.
So that's, there are a couple possibilities, either it's an automatic vacancy. There's the potential that, again, the village board is the judge of the election, the qualification of its members. There's something, it's possible he may not be seated. Another possibility is that the attorney general could also investigate this based on a verified complaint that he's not qualified to hold this. So that would look at the AG's office, looking into his residency issues.
Okay, so does someone need to file that complaint then, or?
Well, I mean, I don't tell the village what to do. Or any person can file a verified complaint with the attorney general's office. Then the attorney general's office would investigate that complaint, determine whether it has merit. And then would pursue a court action if they believe there was merit to either restrain, to declare the office vacant or to restrain any person not entitled to take office from assuming it under the statutes. So that is something that any person in the village could do, any person outside of the village could do. It's something the village board could authorize that a complaint be made. For the record, Doug, I wouldn't participate in this discussion and I would abstain. I would have you abstain. And you might want to make sure the minutes reflect that Doug does not participate, has not participated in this discussion. So, at the moment, there's nothing to vote on per se.
Ultimately,
But
it
the
says,
league has issued its opinion. That was, again, the third party opinion that even Mike wanted to have. And Mike said he was okay with the board seeking.
That's not true.
So we.
right,
had,
and I just want to read
He was
this
there
part.
and said, yes, I agree. Said, yes, I agree, like he was voting on the board. I mean,
It said with you, because it was supposed to be Felicia or the, like, you.
No.
That's the important, because you're wrong and you're lying and you're gonna get called out. Period, end of story.
That's
We got
enough.
it.
So.
Okay.
That's enough out
This is,
first.
They
no,
would-
You
this
can
is-
leave
there's
if you don't
nothing to
want to
argue
stop.
about with that, but he did say that we did look at that and he did agree. He wanted,
You,
no, he wanted,
We were in
third
we were in the
party.
meeting on December 7th,
he wanted a
Shiloh,
third party.
and we
Okay.
can pull the
I'm gonna listen to
recording,
Doug.
and we can pull the recording,
Please.
and it went member by member. Was there consensus to agree? And it got to the end, and Mike was sitting
We're done.
right about in front of you, Shiloh,
We're done.
and he said,
We're done.
yes,
Yes,
I
we are.
agree. He said, yeah, I agree.
I'm trying.
He kind of did a feeble, yes, I agree, and then looked down again. So, he's the one that was okay with getting this opinion, because he didn't want me to issue an opinion.
And he didn't want.
And the board said they were fine seeking a third party opinion because there was some concern about bias on my part. Now you have the league that represents just about every municipality and provides legal services to every municipality.
It's all good. I'm gonna see you in court. You think it's okay where the board members can vote? If somebody can run or not? Tell me,
For the.
tell me. He opened his mouth.
Okay,
We're done.
done.
We're done.
All right,
You're done.
easily.
We're done.
Thank you.
So anyhow, the opinion is the opinion.
Okay, guys.
So, the opinion's the opinion. You have it and it is what it is.
So, Donnie, you had a comment or question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to bring up one point on there. It says here, ultimately residency determinations must be made on a case-by-case basis after considering the totality of the circumstances. Based on the totality of circumstances here, the village board could legally conclude that PT is not resident elector of the village because of the facts do not demonstrate his habitation is fixed in the village as required by Wisconsin statute. Habitation, my question is, did the attorney contact the individual and talk to them about this, that they concluded to this fact, or how did they come up with this conclusion?
So I don't know if the attorney reached out to Mike Cappers individually. But the information that was forwarded to the league's attorney came from things Mike said during the meeting on December 7th. Things that Mike said about his residency on his Facebook pages. A report from a Department of Revenue agent that said Mike didn't appear to be living in his apartment. And then when Mike had additional facts that he wanted to add, disputing or discussing his residency, after that December 7th meeting, it sent out an email. In early December, I forwarded that email from Mike directly to the league's attorney.
Along with
So-
the letter that you sent to them, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there was a letter I sent to the league's attorney outlining, here's what Mike has said. Here are the facts as we understand them. And then here's an additional email from Mr. Cappers. So, and the only
So it was a letter,
Mr.
sent by-
Cappers' response to that was, why are you forwarding this, or why'd you respond so quickly in forwarding this to the league? And I said, well, it's additional facts you introduced. And you wanted communicated, so, but I guess he didn't like it, I don't know. So, so I think,
because there's no case law interpreting statute 6.10, although there are cases interpreting similar predecessor statute. It says they are so factually different, they are not helpful. So really, this is there's no actual state statute that lays this out. I know they cited one, but that had to do with an individual that was not an electorate. It was an individual that was actually working for the city of Madison. And he was required to be in the city limits. When he relocated, that's what the situation went to the Supreme Court. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, we're all understanding what is laid in front of us here is that this is something that we could do. We could take this up as a board. But there is really nothing that says that we could. It does say we could take it up. It doesn't say we have to. It doesn't say that we're required to. That's all I got to say.
So I think there's two issues, right? The first issue is assuming that apartment is an actual resident. That has been in question, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There's no conditional use permit up there, right?
correct.
There's potential zoning issues. I don't know if that's accurate, right? So that's one issue. The second issue is what Donnie brings up, which is, okay, if we assume that that's a legitimate residence, then, right, do the circumstances that we've all been given, right, at one point or another, does that lead us to a place where we vote? Do we leave it up to the Attorney General? I don't know.
So the statute does govern this, just to be clear. You do have to be a resident elector to be elected into a village office like a village trustee. And there's the question about what is a resident elector. The league's opinion goes through what that is, how a court would likely interpret that. and then looks to that Eastman versus City of Madison case, which they said, it's not binding, but it provides insight into how a Wisconsin court looked at residency in a situation involving some factual similarities. In that Court of Appeals case, they concluded that Madison employees who spent most of their off-duty time in a home outside of Madison where their families lived and their children went to school were not residents of Madison, despite keeping apartments in Madison and using Madison for their mailing addresses, telephone numbers, automobile, and voter registrations. So this, again, this is, Donnie, the board asked for a third-party opinion, and the third-party opinion is laid out, so I'm not digging into this anymore and trying to reinterpret or add arguments for or against. The opinion is what it is, based on the league's expertise.
Did you have a question, John?
Yeah, Anders, didn't the board approve it that night and Don was also in favor of a third party, so you weren't biased in it of what Mike Campers was accusing you of?
So I already outlined how, there was a general consensus of every board member, including Mr. Cappers was not a board member, but again, he at the end kind of sheepishly said, yeah, I agree.
Including Don.
I said every board member generally agreed to have me move forward with pursuing a third-party legal opinion. This is a third-party legal opinion. It's taken a very long time to get it. The league has had other priorities, dealing with like amicus briefs. It's something I've asked for updates on. And they provided their opinion, so.
From the league and the internal revenue being spoken to. Not sure how much you guys are on that.
I don't know about internal revenue, but the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is the entity that looked at this, and that's from their general counsel. She's been doing this for decades. So, they represent municipalities. I mean, that's what they do.
So bottom line is, I think it's kind of what everybody's after, right? This means what?
Well, I mean, it certainly appears that Mr. Cappers has hurdles to be in the village president based on his non-residency. I mean, the other thing that this opinion does not include, which I guess, there's probably a concern again that, there's some impartiality here from the village attorney. Before this opinion was issued, there were some additional facts that came in that I did not forward to the league, because quite frankly, I thought this is I'm trying to stay as hands-off as possible. So at the last meeting, the village board authorized the lawsuit, the small claims action to collect the unpaid tubing dues and the late fees owed by Hideaway and Mr. Cappers. I filed that claim on the Thursday after, so that would be the March 2nd. On March 6th, Mr. Cappers was personally served by a process server at his $600,000 home in Stillwater at 3:50 p.m. on a weekday. That was a Monday. He wasn't at work. He wasn't hanging out in his apartment. He was at his Stillwater home. That was not included in this opinion letter. And again, I thought including it or passing this on to the league, I didn't want to play any, here's additional things. I thought the initial facts laid it out quite well, but I think him getting served as his Stillwater home on the first try, it just further adds to this opinion.
So I'm sorry to ask this again. This means,
Yeah, well, it means that, I think it opens up the possibility of the Attorney General looking into this if asked. Again, this came from a third party neutral. So if a verified complaint is anybody in the Attorney General's office, whether that's by the village, at the request of the village board, or by anybody else, I think the Attorney General's office would look pretty hard into this. That would be their investigation, and they would determine whether they think he's a resident or not. And whether he could hold office. And they would likely pursue a court action, you know. But I don't know what the AG's office would do. But came back to, I guess, Brandon's question, he remains on the ballot. But if he has a majority of the votes, I don't know that he'll actually be the village president due to the residency issue. I can't predict, you know, how that goes one way or the other. But this, I mean, this doesn't, you know, make his job of showing he's a resident any easier and qualified.
So basically this said, he's not a resident elector, right? What this said.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's not a resident elector, then theoretically, even though his name's on the ballot, he's not really running. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, you know, as you know, this is outlined in the league's opinion letter. Wisconsin law prohibits any person who is not a resident elector of the village from being elected to any office therein. Wistat section symbol 61.19.
So for just a hypothetical, let's say that time wasn't a factor in this and we had received this decision the night that Mike had was going forward to be appointed as a trustee. Let's say you had that decision in front of us and you had to advise us on whether or not we could vote for him to fill that board position. How would you advise us if we had that decision at the time of him trying to be an elector?
Based on this league's opinion, I would have said you wouldn't be able to vote him in as a trustee. Or to appoint him as a trustee because he didn't meet the resident elected requirement.
Perfect.
So at this point in time, if Mike is voted in April, then this is going to go through a check and balance. Basically, if it was a write-in, right, where you have to be a resident of the village, you have to meet all these certain criterias to hold the office, correct? So there's kind of a waiting period, and then obviously with this ruling, he doesn't meet that criteria.
Like a
So,
seasoning period, yeah.
yes, so, right, is that kind of how it's going to shake out if that's how the April election results?
What do you mean a little bit by checks and balances?
Well, I'm sure that all of us were, I guess, vetted or looked into that we actually live in the village, right? That was one of the check boxes in the check sheet of, all right, you're running for office, all right, you live in the village, check. All right, what else? I don't know what else.
Yeah, what are the background check?
You can't be a felon.
Can't be a felon, you gotta
You
be over
should
18 years
background
old.
Checks, I think.
You have to be, I think you have to be, the term is resident elector, I
So-
believe.
Resident elector, which means you have to be qualified, you have to be an elector, so you have to be at least 18.
Mhm.
Can't be a felon. You have to be a resident of the village in which you're seeking office. And if you're not, it would appear to prohibit him being seated under 61.19.
So then do we have to have another runoff election or whoever was in the second position wins, or then we'd have to appoint somebody or?
I'll say I don't know the answer to that question because this is a rather unique scenario where, you know, normally in every other municipality I deal with, and heck, even Somerset, like when Annie said she's bought a house, she is moving and she'll be resigning. It's not an issue. She recognizes when she's bought a place in, I think it was Stillwater, and she says she's moving there, and this is the date that she's moving, is no longer going to be a resident. She leaves the board. You just don't have a lot of scenarios where someone is, where there's a cloudy sky and they're saying it's blue.
So basically, I think we could make it akin to somebody said, hey, I'm a resident elector, I'm legal to vote, to run. I live in the village, and then you find out they're a convicted felon, right? That disqualifies
That would-
everything that came before. I think it's similar to that. At least that's what it sounds
You know,
like.
that would again be a disqualifying factor. They wouldn't have been authorized to be elected. And, whether that's a separate hearing process, an automatic vacation of the office, or it's something the Attorney General brings for the court action to force them out if there's an unwillingness to voluntarily recognize their non-residency, then, that's, I think those are kind of the three options.
That's not gonna fall back on police, should have to make the decision either, right?
No, I don't think so.
I don't want that.
No, I don't think
By any
you put your clerk in that position and.
No,
So
I'm just saying after it all, it came down to where she had to make a decision. We don't want that at all.
would it behoove the board to vote before the election?
No, but I don't know what you'd be voting on.
Well, I mean,
And
I thought there was.
I guess. If you're talking about voting and making a decision on this, one, this isn't noticed for any type of voting or trying to make a decision on. What you do if he's elected. I don't think that's properly noticed for this agenda. I don't want you making any type of decision.
Can we make a motion as a board at this meeting? I know it's a work session, but can we file a complaint as a board? Can we make that motion right now?
I think,
Or can I?
well, I
do
think,
it now, or?
so again, this isn't
Up for
necessarily.
discussion, I don't
This
believe
is
that's
not an
proper.
action item, so
What?
this is not an action item.
Discussion, but it's not proper for us to bring forward a motion on anything because it's up for discussion only.
We're not gonna,
Okay, all right, just asking.
I think that's what
Yeah,
Otters was
Donnie,
explaining.
I just said that this is not an action item. So. Say at the next Tuesday's meeting, if you wanted to authorize, like a filing of a verified complaint with the Attorney General to at least have them start investigating this. So.
They don't,
Yeah,
village
so you
board
can-
do they? I mean, anybody can make that phone call at any time.
It needs to be a verified complaint, Donnie.
So he can elect, so I understand correctly, and I'm not poo-pooing this, I want to understand this, is that anybody can and vote into in a municipality, but they can't necessarily get elected to that municipality if they carry a house someplace else. Is that correct?
No, Donnie, that's not what's being said. We're not, for example, this isn't challenging like a hobby farm that you have, in the central part of the state. No one's questioning your.
No, but it is though, is what I am asking though, is can a person vote in a municipality and not be elected in that municipality?
That is an issue that is not.
That's the
for
same issue,
village. So Donnie, that wades into some other statutes, outside of whether someone's a resident, and I don't want the village to be discussing whether some other statutes were potentially violated or not. That's quite frankly for Mr. Cappers to determine whether, he's comfortable making representations while he's voting, and that's not for the board to decide. And as that Eastman decision said.
So if I hear you right, you're saying that it's two separate issues. A person can, in essence, vote in a municipality, but that's a separate issue than them getting elected in a municipality, right?
I'm not saying, no, I'm not saying these are two separate issues that way and that you can do one and not get elected. What I'm saying is the village board should not be discussing whether he can or cannot vote in this municipality, because I think that implicates other statutes.
Understood. I
Which
get-
and
I'm
as the.
disputing
as
that.
the East-
I'm
yeah,
sure that
he's
we are.
made, he's
Understood.
made representations. He's made representations. Apparently while
voted.
voting. I understand he's voted, in the village. That is, I think, a separate issue.
So
You
they
know,
aren't linked. They're not linked then.
I don't understand what you mean, Donnie, by they're not linked.
No, I'm saying that voting in a municipality does not link that individual to that municipality.
Voting in a municipality to, well, again, I think the league's opinion actually mentioned this, that,
No,
you know,
I'm
voting in a
asking what that,
particular.
what-
Similarly, registering to vote at a particular address does not provide evidence of fixed habitation. That, I mean, that's in the league's opinion. So just because you vote in a place does not mean you're a resident elector there, that you have your fixed habitation in that spot.
So it could possibly be voters fraud.
I'm not gonna say anything about that.
I'm not asking them.
I'm not going there, John, and that's, again, that's something where I don't want the village board discussing it or even going there.
So is there anything more on this then? Or have we sufficiently covered it? Are you gonna make this letter public? So,
Well, this is a record that, you know, is a public record. The village board can make it public and available.
Does that
if,
include
chooses.
communications to the attorneys that produced that document?
I'm sorry, what?
I said, does that include the communications that helped to produce that document? Can
Yeah,
them be made public as well?
yeah, absolutely.
I don't have anything further.
I'm good.
Chris, you good?
You guys covered it. We will move on. And again, that's why I abstained from commenting on that for the record. Discussion, safety, security possibilities for tubing. I had hoped that I would get a hold of the sheriff to see if he could possibly call in. I did not get an opportunity to do that. I will try to do that for next week's meeting. I don't know. I see Steve is here. I don't know if you've had any more time to think about that at all, or I don't know if you've done any work with the other tubing company currently in business on the river, or.
Yeah, I'm in communication with them and it's. You know, some of the things that we would do security wise, it's gonna be dependent on. Where the judge is going to be getting, you know, picking up their tubers and things like that, so. Maybe before this bulletin, it's a short time looking for a tubing license and.
Yeah, it should be
ready to take, you know,
next month.
do things like.
I
we
just
do.
sent it out today.
Okay. And so if it's there, then I'd like to have cameras there with the permission of the village, because it is a public space, so everyone would, you know, on camera. We're probably all filmed 20 times a day already, but, you know, just things like that. Have the board and or the police department and or the public have access to the camera. Some of those discussions we'll have.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't really, unfortunately, I don't have more information on that at this point. Like I said, I do want to try and have the sheriff stop in and give us some feedback on that, since the majority of the river is within the county versus within the village.
Yeah.
To see what sort of things that we can do. I know that the sheriff's department does provide resources to the St. Croix River, so obviously there are waterways that they do patrol within and help with those things within the county, so I would think that this wouldn't be much different from that. But I think it's something I'd just like to talk to him about and then have him come before the board and discuss as well, so. Yes, John?
But the county did patrol it for years.
And that's what I wanna take and find out what their availability is and what sort of thing that they can get from that side of things, whether it's. I know there's a funding thing that they're looking at and other stuff, but obviously this is it's a concern. It's something that we need to make sure that we have proper coverage in, especially on busier days and things like that. So just look at how we can improve the safety to all patrons, whether they're residents of the village, the town, county, state, region, whatever. Anyone that comes to it should have a feeling of relative safety, so.
I might have missed it at our joint meeting, but was there anything that the township's discussing in regards to anything? Or putting anything on the books of ordinances or anything like that?
We're working on some new ordinances, but we haven't gotten too far with it.
Okay.
And technically, as of right now, we don't have a legal campground in our township.
Moving on, we'll go to discussion of Wold's facility assessment proposal. That was actually says to table to the April agenda.
That was table.
My bad, I missed that ending on it. New business, discussion, TID 3 amendment, project plan and resolution.
I don't know, Chuck's here. I don't know if he wants to talk a little bit about it, but I kind of put it on there. It's on the next meeting, the 21st, there's gonna be a joint review board meeting at 1 o'clock to review and to give recommendation on this. And then the plan commission will be having it at 6 o'clock that evening to give recommendation. They're both public hearings, those two are. So if anyone from the public one has any questions, they can come and give their input. And then it'll be the resolution. A resolution will come out of that, and that will be on the village board meeting. That same evening at 6:30. So, but I don't know if Chuck has any.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask any questions. They've just, Ellers is planning on extending, amending TID 3 to include parcels, including the, that proposed purchase of the Mont Pettit land there. And, they've asked us for some exhibits and some costs, and we've provided that to them, so. Expect to learn more next Tuesday. I don't know if you have any questions.
And I did, it was emailed to you, and I think I just gave you the most updated, because one of the tables had a little error in it, whatever, so I just, tonight, with the new one.
Okay.
So you can go back and redo it.
Yeah, I did see those earlier, so. Any other discussion or comments on that?
Only comment I have, it looks like we're gonna be turning a blighted TID over into one of the strongest TIDs. TID 3 is gonna be pretty strong TID as far as tax revenue once everything's said and done. So I think it's a really good move.
I don't disagree. All right, moving on, we'll go to discussion communication to village residents. This is from our, what,
So this was what you guys requested, you told Andrew you want on here. I don't know.
right. I'm just trying to do you remember exactly the details on it more, or Don?
It was from finance, when we all sat down, that we had talked that we needed to bring this up as what are some good ways to communicate events and or information, coming up with all of the information that's going to be during this construction phase this year and everything, that we're looking into, possible apps or something like that, that we had talked about from all, having all the staff in our reviews. Remember that?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, an interesting thing, and I don't know if somebody else had directed, I just got an email today from a company talking about website design and applications for apps for sending out one-way messages, communicating, posting, different forms and things online. So as part of that, what we've talked about is some different things of looking at ways to improve our communication ability with the residents, improving our website, improving forms, so people don't necessarily have to come in and get the forms. They can take and fill them out online versus taking having to bring things in, just trying to get into the 21st century a little bit. But yeah, just looking at different ways that we can try and improve it. Obviously, we have some of the stuff with the YouTube channel that you guys have done and the stuff with the Facebook pages, both from the village, the police department, public works. So those types of things and how we can kind of make it cohesive.
Yeah, if we've got anything provided or any small videos from like the Wisconsin Department of Transit, I can definitely, I saw one the other day that was on the website. You can also post it on YouTube if we want double coverage there.
Right.
So more is better, I guess.
So,
But if we get videos, we can if we get videos, I can post them on YouTube.
anything else that you remember from that or want to bring up, Donnie, or?
I guess we could film videos, like short ones, if a member wanted to say something and we could film one and put it on YouTube. Like if you really wanted something that you had to say or something, update, we could shoot a quick video and upload it to YouTube and then also the Facebook.
I think the bigger thing is to ask the residents, to reach out to the residents and like I just say for like my union, they asked me, they said, hey, if you're interested in updates about what's going on around the village, type your or give us, permission to communicate with you via text. Now that's a one-way communication that can be utilized by the village to notify them of upcoming, construction updates, the bridge is closing on this day. People that want to be informed, it gives us an opportunity and a way to at least get that out to them rather than saying, hey, go look on the website or go look on YouTube. Not to say anything about YouTube. Don't get me wrong there. I like that opportunity there, but this is just something where if the public works has, information that they want to share or Bob has information that needs to get out to the community, that individuals who have exercised and asked for to be updated on, specific items of interest within the village can get that information right away. Like, right.
Yeah, my only question would be, how much would something like that cost?
Well,
It's
I think that was one of the things. Sorry, Donnie, you go.
Relatively cheap, but that's not that's.
Our local unions are messaging 26,000 people, and it's costing us I think it's less than $400 on the last, and I don't know, it all depends on how many communications you send out there. But when we were messaging 26,000 people, it was, 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, messages. It's so many cents per time, and it goes down with the more you use because you're spreading that out over more people, so you're buying volume, but you can get those numbers, obviously.
Yeah, I guess I'm more of an advocate. For me, I'd be more of an advocate of having the information of someone having to. I mean, we're not difficult to find information.
Well,
everything.
and I think it's more from the standpoint if there's,
money,
if there's something like example, if you had a spot that was open for severe weather that was coming up that you could send out, or if that, hey, there's an election coming, or hey, there's the meetings for the board meetings, or it could be a opt-in for messages. And I'm not saying we do it for every little thing that happens, or I don't think anyone's saying that, but I think one of the questions, I don't know, Andrew, if you know, was if we had that opportunity, if that was something currently within our website, if that was something that was there. I think Bob thought as a possibility that it was, and Felicia's shaking her head, yes, so.
The school does this, I get updates when school's closed. I get updates about upcoming events going on, and and if I sign up for more stuff like sporting events, I get that too. So I'm sure we could probably figure out, by making a couple inquiries, even within the school district that, you know, it's very cost, you know, advantageous for us to use that as a form of communication to the residents.
I guess my concern is that we just be spending money to just send messages to people that are already not really attempting to be informed.
Well, this gives them the opportunity to sign up for it, so they'd actually be signing up to be informed. This isn't, you send it out to every phone number, you would actually have to go in and literally opt in to say, hey, we want to get messages.
Well,
So-
what you have to do is you would have to have people seek it out to opt in,
Right,
right?
yep.
And
So, but it's not, again, it's one of those things that, and then I'll answer this, and I'd like Andrea to kind of respond, but it was from the standpoint of how many actually send out. So if you're not sending out and if 5 people opt into it, whatever, say it's 10 cents that it costs us to send it out. It's not like it's a $50
you get
bill
charged
every
per
time.
recipient?
Possibly. I think that's, Donnie was thinking it was maybe that, but they had as a number, how much you're sending out is how many is going. So, but anyway, Andrea, you were gonna answer.
Yes, through our current website, we have the option to have e-alerts. So residents can sign up, and anytime a new item is added to the website, they would receive an email. I don't know if they get text messages. I'll have to look into that. That there's something new on the website. So.
So we already have that?
That's a service we already have, that we're just not utilizing.
Correct.
I think it cost us more too, though, right?
It's just something I think that we should look at,
Yeah.
find out how much the cost is, and then we can bring back to say, is that something that we want to do as a board, make the decision on saying, yeah, that's a valid item to add into budgets and look at as a.
Right, I just want to
like
put
that
the
better too, 'cause
onerous
it's
on
not-
them.
It's not something extra that we'd really have to do. It would just be anytime we update our minutes, our agendas, like we do, you know, it would just
Right.
alert them. So it's not an extra step like we do with Facebook or anything.
But all the information is out there, the onus is on every individual to be informed, you know, that's.
In addition to that, I don't know that the village in, whether it's public works, whether it's public safety, or whether it's the general village. I don't know that there's a great Facebook presence, right? Or a Twitter presence or an Instagram, right? Like, and there's probably others. My point is, I kind of agree with BK. If we're gonna do something, let's have it be meaningful. But that means, I think, that we've done all this other stuff up to that point. I don't think that we're doing that.
And I think this is, it's overall, the discussion is what do we look at and start looking into? It's not okay, yeah, next month or next week, let's turn this on, let's start doing it. I think it's what options do we have? There's been discussions on different things on frequency of posts and things that we have through all agencies, all of our Facebook pages, and what we can do to address some of those items to make sure that we're being, whether you call it transparent, I feel that we are transparent, but you have more access and availability to it. And even comments, whether it's updates to the residents on a yearly basis, come February, March, potholes happen. That's the season for it, right? Especially as it warms and get that stuff, and these things happen, and our ability to fix those are directly related to availability of the material. And if the plants that make that material is not available, it behooves us and it behooves Public Works to be able to communicate that to people, to say, hey, we are aware of this going on. There's nothing we can do right now. We're gonna try and do stuff. But right now, we're at the mercy of the company that makes this product, and it's not available right now. So we can have awareness of, yeah, there's something, we see this stuff over on Main Street over by wherever, say it's by Liquor Depot, you know, there's a pothole there. We have that on our radar of things to fix, and having those communications go out, whether it be through Facebook and whatnot pages, but also I think through the emails, because you have a lot of people that aren't on Facebook, don't want to get on Facebook. And, you know, so they can't go to get that information. They have no other way to go other way through the website, which might not get updated with that. So there's just different things. I think it's, as a whole, we want to improve the communication of the community And it's not just Somerset Village, it's also anyone at large that wants to be a part of that and get updates of what's going on, and people that drive to the schools or whatever.
I was just gonna ask Andrea if Public Works has access to the website, correct? So, and that may, I don't know, I haven't looked to see if they utilize it, but that'd be a good idea for them to utilize too, upcoming things or, you know.
Issues, website.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so there's a lot of different things. I think it's getting that discussion going of what we can do, what's available to us at the time.
Do we have any Andrew, I know we've talked before, I couldn't remember where we ended up. Do we have any discussions around changing the website or?
It has been discussed, yes.
Do we want to have like a meeting with? Do you want any of the board members to come down and we can meet with you guys and kind of discuss it and go over it or?
Sure.
We've had some initial discussions on it, but I think it's up for bigger discussion to go through.
Do you have any notes or anything like that that you take or improvements?
Nothing I
Or
have
stuff that
right
we
now,
want? Okay.
but I mean, it's just an overall improvement, how it works again, and again, like I mentioned before, having built, fillable forms on the website.
Yeah.
You know, having things like that, having it where it's easy to get access to and easy to move around.
And as always, the info at the village email is there, so we do respond to those, so if anyone does write our emails, at the info at the village, we typically respond to those within 2 to 3 business, I mean, typically it's faster than a day, but
It's
it's.
usually the next day,
Yeah, it's usually the next day, so.
whatever it is holiday,
Yep,
or weekend.
that's all I have.
Anything else on this topic? All right. Next item that we have is closed session, convene to closed session as per Wisconsin statute 19.851E. Deliberating and negotiating specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
I would just note the hideaway item doesn't fall under this, and I don't think there's anything to discuss regarding that. That's litigation. You handled it last month. It's been filed and it's going through the process.
Okay,
Like I said, he was served at the Stillwater home.
okay.
Thank you for taking care of that.
So the land purchase agreement with Montana Brothers and land purchase agreement with Capstone. So I will make a motion to convene to closed session. Okay, this is a roll call.
Yes.
So Donnie? I saw a mouth move, I had to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
yes. Josh? Aye. Brandon?
Aye.
Aye. Chris?
Aye.
And Dean,
I'm
aye.
gonna be around them, sir.
All right, all in favor, so we are now moving into closed session. Please stop recording, and everyone is already exiting the.
You just gonna stay out here?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so, we have nothing to report, there's no actions taking out of closed session at this time. Everything else is just an update, so at this point, I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:13 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion or meeting adjourned.
Done.
Thank you all.
Good. Gracious.
Wait, which source?
Night, all.
Hold on.
Thanks, Donnie, thank
Hold
you.
on.
Good trip.
Did that.
We'll see you next.
Recorded, Felicia.
Mhm.
Good
Still
recording.
recording.